living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
It used to be a word that people were afraid to say out loud, cancer, but more and more people are surviving it, and the death rates for cancer are at an all-time low. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm your host, Janet Whitmoyer, and today we'll be talking about how we're beating cancer and what you can do to lower your risk. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm joined today by Dr. Marion Smith from Torrington, Wyoming. Thank you, Dr. Smith, for joining me today. I wanted to start off with talking a little bit about a person's chances of being diagnosed with cancer. I know that several of us on watching may know somebody who's been diagnosed or are cancer survivors ourselves. So can you tell us a little bit about what a person's chances are? Really the chance of being diagnosed with an invasive cancer in a person's lifetime is about 40%, which is a little bit shocking to me. I think that most of us think we're going to avoid that, but 40% is pretty high in a lifetime. Women, of course, a little bit less than that, and men a little bit more. Okay. So we also know that cancer rates vary between geographical regions and in the states. Can you tell us why that is so?
We don't really know for sure, but there's certainly possibilities like radon areas, radon in the surrounding ground and whatever in your house certainly is a risk factor for cancer, and it's more prevalent in some areas than others. There's also things like obesity rates and smoking rates. Those all affect the cancer rates. And you think of things like the 3 Mile Island nuclear incident, and people that were young at that time in Pennsylvania are more likely to get thyroid cancer. And actually, Pennsylvania is #1 for thyroid cancer in the country and felt to be related to that. So there's always factors that differ across the country.
Okay. That's interesting. So you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but can you explain a little bit more about the differences in gender? I think you said women are diagnosed a little less frequently than men. Can you tell us a little more about that?
We really don't know why that is either, but there's a lot of theories on that. One, men may have more exposure. They tend to be less likely to come in care until it have progressed.
Okay. So we also know that there's a lot of different types of cancer. Can you tell us what are some of the most common types of cancer that we see in the United States?
The very most common is skin cancer. It's not lethal. There's many different kinds of skin cancer, and they're all lumped together into skin cancer. The next most common is lung cancer, and it's actually the leading cause of cancer death is lung cancer.
And so could you tell us the percentage, and you just talked about lung cancer being the leading cause of death. Can you tell us what type of what our chances are of surviving certain types of cancer? I don't really know the numbers on that. Okay. All right. So is there a survival? Are there certain types of cancers where maybe the survival rate is a little bit better than other types? And how do we know, or is there any information you can give us on what the survival rate might mean?
That's really variable. It all depends on the cell type, and that's really variable.
Okay, so we know that more and more people are surviving cancer. Do we know why that's the case?
Well, there again, we don't have black and white proof of anything, but it's felt that our treatments are better, our screening is better, we are more aware of what to look for, we're screening more people, finding things earlier, and that's the key to survival.
Okay. So does research show that the survival rates will continue to go up, or is there any way to predict that?
Yeah, the predictions are that the survival rates are going to increase. The things that go against that are the obesity problem in the country. Obesity is definitely a risk factor, and it's just exponential across the country. 2/3 of our country are either overweight or obese, and definitely a risk factor to cancer and to diminishing survival rates.
Okay. And we know that we're making strides with the research as far as cancer goes, but it's still the second leading cause of death. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but can you talk about what we mean by cancer prevention and why it's important?
So prevention, we look at actually preventing the cancer from developing. So we talk a lot about screening, and that's more to detect early and to start treatment early. But prevention is to actually avoid getting the cancer in the first place. And it's felt that about 50% of cancers can be avoided if we just make lifestyle choices, such as smoking and obesity, alcohol, sun exposure, those sort of things.
Okay. So you have touched on, you said that about 50% of cancers can be treated, or can be cured. Can you give us an idea, just real quickly, what some of those types of cancers are that can be actually prevented?
Skin cancer, we really need to be more aware of the dangers of ultraviolet light.
Okay.
We need to cover up, we need to use sunscreen, sunglasses that block UVA and UVB, those sort of things.
Okay. Well, we need to take a break right now, but we'll be right back with more from Dr. Smith. Stay tuned. We're back with Dr. Smith talking about cancer prevention. And in this segment, Dr. Smith, I'd like to talk about risk factors and how we might be able to control those when it comes to cancer. One of the first ones is age. We know that cancer can happen at any age, but as we get older, the chances of getting cancer obviously go up. Why does getting older increase our risk for getting cancer?
Well, the current thought on that is that with increasing age, we've had increasing exposure. We've had more sun, we've had more fun, we've had a lot of things that increase our risk. There's also a theory that every time our cells divide, which is happening all the time, there's an increased chance of a gene mutation, and that would lead open to cancer developing and then progressing.
Okay. And I know you talked in the last segment about smoking and some of the other things we could do. Can you talk about that a little bit more? What some of the things as far as smoking and tobacco use we can do to prevent those types of risk factors?
Well, fortunately, in this country, our smoking rates have actually diminished over the years. When I first started this job a long time ago, there were 25% of adults still smoke cigarettes. And today it's down to 15%, which is very good. Mm-hmm. Lung cancer is the big one with smoking, but there's probably 10 other cancers that are associated with smoking and tobacco use. And lung cancer really is accounts for 23% of the deaths from cancer. So it really is a major player.
Okay. So if someone needs help quitting smoking, what are the options out there for them to get that help?
So of course we have medications, and over the years developed things that are really helpful. Nicotine replacement, and then some of the other medications that decrease the urge and the desire to smoke. Sometimes those can be expensive, but there are a lot of programs that would help pay for those. Every state has a quit line. And for example, the 1-800-QUIT NOW is a quit line. And actually statistics show that a person that calls and participates in the quit line is 50% more likely to quit than the person that doesn't.
Okay, well, awesome. That's great information. I'd like to switch gears just a little bit and talk about alcohol consumption now. Can you tell us what the connection between alcohol and cancer risk is?
Yeah. So alcohol is considered a carcinogen, and it seems that continual use is the worst. Binge drinker, just occasional. It's that everyday use is really associated with more of the cancer risk. And really the acceptable level of alcohol is 0 for cancer prevention.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when it comes to alcohol, what do we need to do to lower the risk? Maybe you said, 0 alcohol, but is there other ways that we can lower our risk related to alcohol and cancer?
I think the everyday use is the high risk, and in any level, of course, the worse it gets.
Okay, so alcohol in moderation is probably a wise thing to consider?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Are there other cancer-causing substances besides those, that we talked about, alcohol and smoking, that you would like to bring up that we should be paying attention to?
Okay, so I did make a list.
Oh, good.
So tobacco, of course, is the top of the list. But another thing that we hear about a lot, but a lot of us want to just ignore, is radon. And radon really is important. A lot of houses have high radon levels, and especially those with basements and enclosed areas. There's radon testing. There's all kinds of things to do to find out if you have radon. Another one is asbestos. And of course, we don't see that so much anymore, but asbestos causes mesothelioma, which is a lung cancer that's just deadly. And one I was surprised with, I guess I knew, but I try not to think about it, is crispy brown fried food. It's okay if it's not so crispy brown, but once it gets that brown color, it develops a chemical that is a carcinogen. And then formaldehyde, ultraviolet rays, sunshine, and then alcohol we talked about, processed meat, and diesel engine exhaust.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you're in traffic and you're next to a big diesel truck, you should hold your breath, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So in the last 30 seconds we have for this segment, can you tell us, you talked a little bit about foods, can you tell us, do dietary supplements help reduce the risk of cancer?
That has been all over the board over the years, studied up and down. And right now, the current recommendation is that there's no evidence that dietary supplements help at all. And actually, there are some that increase the risk. The studies have shown. So the recommendation is against any supplements for cancer prevention.
Great information to know. We need to take another break, but we'll be right back with more with Dr. Smith. Stay tuned. We're back with Dr. Smith talking about cancer prevention and the steps that we can take to help reduce our risk. So thank you again, Dr. Smith, for being with us. I want to talk about skin cancer to start off with. You talked about it being by far one of the most prevalent cancers. So what can we do to actually help prevent skin cancer?
So the main thing is to avoid the sunlight and tanning beds. So the ultraviolet light is what causes the cellular changes that lead to cancer. We can wear skin block and sunblock, which should be at least SPF 15 or higher. Broad brimmed hats, sleeves and pant legs, and of course avoid the tanning beds.
Okay. And we know that as with a lot of illnesses, genetics can play a factor. And so can you tell us a little bit about the role that our family history and genetics plays with cancer? So there is correlation between family history, and there's a lot of syndromes that we've discovered, and but really only about 5 to 10% of cancers are solely genetically based. We may be predisposed to cancer, and if we know something runs in the family, we should be more vigilant. We should probably start screening earlier and more frequently. Okay.
Bigger issue is the exposures and the risk factors that we can control.
Okay. And so does getting vaccinated for certain diseases help us also to lower our risk of cancer?
Yes. As a matter of fact, in the last 10 years or so, they've come up with a vaccine for human papillomavirus, or the HPV. We've discovered that HPV is what's responsible for cervical cancer, which to me is just amazing that we figured that out. I can remember the first day I heard that that's what it was, and it's just so amazing that we figured that out, and now we have a vaccine to prevent it. So it's one of those recommended childhood immunizations. There's a lot of pushback about it because of the implications, but it's becoming more acceptable. And I think as time goes on, when we see our cancer rates dropping, we'll be able to embrace that a little more. And the other one that comes to mind would be the hepatitis vaccine. So right now we can vaccinate it for hepatitis A and hepatitis B. And we know that hepatitis infections lead a person predisposed to liver cancer in the future. So if we can prevent the hepatitis, we can prevent that form of liver cancer. So that's not as prevalent, but it certainly is another good outcome from a vaccination.
Okay. You had touched a little earlier on screening, and we know that is an extremely important part of cancer prevention. Can you talk to us a little bit about the different types of screenings that are available for different cancers?
Sure. So there's all kinds of screening tests, and not all of them are of great value. A lot of testing we really don't recommend unless a person is having symptoms, but just mass screening for a lot of things really causes more harm than good. But there are cases of screening tests that are truly valuable, and they really do make a difference. I think of these as the big four, and in my patients, I really emphasize that these tests really do make a difference, and they do save lives, and they do save a lot of heartache. And one is colorectal cancer screening. If we can get the polyps out before they turn to cancer, you don't have the cancer. We can get the polyps out even after they've turned to cancer and before it's spread, as long as we follow the guidelines and screen when it's supposed to happen. There's all different types of colorectal cancer screening. You don't have to have the colonoscopy. And then, of course, mammograms, breast cancer. They're so much better now than they have been in the past. They can detect the smallest little flake of calcium, which would be a cancer. And actually, clinical breast exam, like myself doing breast exams in the office, really is of no value compared to a mammogram. By the time I can feel the lump, it's oftentimes too late. The other is cervical cancer, so pap smears or HPV testing now. That if we can catch it early, we can take care of it. And the most recent one is the lung cancer screening. So recently they've come up with a protocol for, they call it low-dose CT scans. A person has to fit into a pretty tight category to get this done, and it has to be done every year. But it does make a significant difference in detecting lung cancer early. And if lung cancer isn't detected early, it's almost 100% fatal.
Okay.
So that's my big four.
Okay, those are awesome big fours, and we're just about out of time, but in the last 30 seconds that we have, do you have any closing thoughts or key takeaways that you would like to share with our viewers?
Oh, yes. I guess I really want to emphasize the lifestyle issue and things that we can do. It doesn't help to just worry about it. You have to do something about it, and really to talk about the big four with your doc and get on the schedule and get it done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for the great information. And thank you for joining us. Until next time, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health in partnership with AARP Montana. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the Healthy Living for Life logo. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.